Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business. I'm looking forward to talking to Ellen Yashinsky Chute. Ellen, it's great to see you. The last time I saw you, we were taking a communications class together, and that was about, I think we determined about 14, 15, 16 years ago. And thanks. I ran into your son at the golf club, and he said, you got to have my mom on the show. So you have your ambassadors out there doing PR for you.
I
So
do.
great to see
Right.
him. I'm looking forward to
Thank you.
talking with you, Ellen, because one, I always enjoyed your company when we took our communications class together, but also because the name of your book is something I talk about all the time, which is what drives you. And in a world I do as a business coach, I work with solopreneurs to Fortune 100 companies and everything in between, from salespeople to managers to leaders to owners to C-level execs. And one of the things I always ask people when they're managing people of any type and they're having troubles or not having troubles or don't realize they're having troubles is I will ask them, do you know what drives each individual person? And the first thing they usually say to me is, I don't even know what you mean. So I love that you're here. You're the author of the book, What Drives You, and also the host of the What Drives You podcast. You're the president of Empowerment Partners, and you're a clinical social worker who provides psychotherapy to individuals, couples, and families, as well as consultation in the workplace. And so because this is about business, let's go
Right.
into the workplace, right? And how
Yep.
important it is to understand everybody's drivers.
Right. I think thank you for having me. And I think that really is the focus of everything in terms of being a manager. If you understand what drives people, you're going to know how to help them to produce the most, to be the happiest. And I believe that what drives us comes from our families of origin. So I use the metaphor of a car to describe a family. And I believe that when we grow up together, we grow up within our families, and we all have a seat in our metaphorical car.
Yeah.
Some of us did have a car, and we can think literally where we sat in the car, but everybody has a seat in the car. And it is within the car that we develop our views of ourselves because of the billions of interactions that go on in that car, and because everybody has a role to play in that car,
Yeah.
and they have to play their role, otherwise the car doesn't go. And the job of the car is to take people from today to tomorrow to the next day.
Yeah.
So in the workplace, you may have someone who is a driver of their car, and they may come into the workplace and be really aggressive and goal oriented and are able to sort of think big. Or you may have someone like me who grew up all alone as an only child in the back seat of a car. And the rule in my car, all cars have rules about what can happen and what can't happen. And sometimes the rules are spoken and sometimes they're not. But the rule in my car was spoken. And that rule was that little girls are to be seen and not heard.
Mm-hmm.
So my entire childhood and adolescence was about me sitting in the back and trying to meet up to my parents' expectations of appearance, which were huge, and me not having a voice and not getting to be the driver, not even being able to use my voice to tell people what I needed or what I thought. I was never asked for any of that, nor was it permitted in my car.
Yeah.
So if someone were to tell me to think big, you would have to understand that my whole brain and body were formed in a way so as never to
Right.
think big.
To be
I
small.
was,
Yeah.
yes, right, to be small and voiceless.
Yeah.
It's the way that I like. The thing that sums it up the most for me is that it took me until I was 70 to write this little book.
Yeah.
Because there were just these voices in my head that kept saying, oh, come on, who's going to read it? Who's going to want it? It's not important. I didn't think I got to do that. I didn't think I I was entitled to do that.
Yeah.
Just because that was how I was raised.
Yeah.
So it isn't that I can't do it. It's that I needed a lot of help knowing that I got
Get
to,
there.
that
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
entitled to. And
So
I'm still not there. I'll
yeah.
tell you that.
Let's unpack that a little bit more because,
Okay.
it is, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of people can connect to that story. As you're telling it, I love storytelling. I'm visualizing, different seats in the car. I remember turning 16 thinking, I can't wait to be the driver and have that freedom,
Yeah.
no differently
Right.
than when you got learn how to drive a bicycle and then a car. It's like you have that freedom to just kind of take control.
Right.
I also remember being in the back seat of my parents' Oldsmobile with my brother and my cousins and my mom and my aunt smoking cigarettes all the way from Farmington Hills to Southfield. I mean,
Right. Exactly.
with the window
Yes.
cracked. And so we could probably have an episode just on that
Oh, we
topic.
could for sure.
But I want to talk about, one of the things as a business coach that I talk about is the reason you need to know people's driver is very in line with what you're talking about.
Right.
It's because when you know their driver, you can have a company meeting, but the magic is in the one-on-one. And when you have company meetings and when you have one-on-one, it's the specific words that are in alignment with that person's driver so they can then hear you. And
Right.
so what happens is I find that when you don't know the driver, you're just always talking to the masses. And
Oh, for sure.
and something I also want your thoughts on this. One of the things I tell people is you can't ask somebody what their driver is because then you become a corporate person who people feel manipulated by. You really have to uncover it on your own, and it needs to be an authentic process. So can you talk a little bit about how words matter?
Sure. So what I say about words, so what I say about managing and other people is that they have to feel safe with you.
Yeah.
They're not going to produce for you. They're not going to produce for themselves if they don't feel safe. So for some people, setting a goal doesn't feel safe because in their head they think, well, I don't know if I can do that goal. For other people, talking about goal setting is a motivator.
Yeah.
So you need to know how to get this person to do what it is you want them to.
Right.
And by the way, this is not just in the business world.
No.
Right. The best marriages, in the very best long-term love relationships, each person knows how to get their needs met.
Yeah.
And in a way that provokes love and connection.
Yeah.
So these interpersonal skills are valuable everywhere in our life.
Yeah.
Words really matter. I remember when I was one of the iterations in my life when I went into therapy and I called somebody who was recommended to me, and she called me back and she said, okay, we need to pick a time and we need to get to work. And I said, okay, nice talking to you. And I hung up the phone because to me, I wasn't something that we get to work on.
Right.
Right. So she was trying to be motivating. She was trying to be encouraging, but it didn't feel like that to me.
Yeah.
Right. And I believe that really good managers know this about their people.
Yeah.
And it's almost an instinctive thing that they do. They get to know someone, they understand what makes them tick, what isn't motivating to them, what is motivating to them. And they are skills that people can learn.
Yeah. It's an art and a science, and it resets every day, sometimes every hour throughout the day. And it resets throughout the seasons, and it resets depending on what's going on in their lives. And that's why management is so difficult. I don't think people realize until they get into it. I always say, business is easy. People make it difficult because it's really a full-time job to know, the energy that they're bringing to the room. But your energy always has to remain the same, evolving and high. So you can't dip. Right.
And what I say is open.
Correct. Yeah.
Like you have to be open to what comes at you. to
Correct.
see it, to make sense of it, to wonder about it. To me, one of the biggest words in being human is the art of wondering. So
Hmm.
somebody does something and you think to yourself, I wonder what that was about,
Yeah.
rather than what's wrong with them? Why are they doing that?
Yeah.
If we can use our prefrontal cortex adult thought processes and wonder, we will come up with an understanding that
Yeah.
will help us to move people where we want them to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you seen the Power of Wonder TED Talk by Jeff Hoffman? Jeff Hoffman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
good. Oh, it's so
So
good.
good.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my
I
gosh.
recommend it to a lot of people. It's great. Oh, wait. So
Right.
I want to back up a little bit. So thank you for everything thus far. I want to
Hmm.
talk about breaking lineage, right? So here we are in this car. I'm 50. I've been in therapy for, 25 years. Therapy, business coaches, Buddhist monk, holistic doctor, it takes like every part of my brain. And,
Yes.
um, and so, let's talk about breaking lineage, right? So we all have these voices in our head
Yes.
that are really just voices. Maybe we took something that somebody said as a truth, but now we realize it's not a truth. And
Right.
so how do we break the lineage and tell the voices to just stop talking?
I'm going to tell you how. That doesn't mean that it's easy
Yeah.
or that you're going to be able to leave here and just do it. Okay. The voices are actually the second step.
Mm-hmm.
The first step is a body feeling, a body sensation. Now, we may not be aware of that first step, but our bodies are what sense the environment. So wherever we are, whoever we with, our bodies have these little interoceptive cells that are just looking around for input. And our bodies learned when we were young that certain situations weren't safe because one of our parents was in a bad mood or somebody didn't respond to us when we were supposed to. So our bodies re-experience that over and over and over in our lives. It is the body sensation that triggers the negative thought.
Okay.
Okay. So my body sensations are all in my gut, and I'm really good at identifying them now. Some people have them in their shoulders, in their throat, in their heart, but our bodies get triggered, the negative thoughts start going. The body trigger is actually a feeling. It's scared, it's hurt, it's sad, it's wanting, yearning. Okay? If we can recognize that our body is reacting and we can have a little conversation with our body that sounds something like, wow, okay, I just got activated. I wonder what's going on. What am I maybe feeling right now? And I can tell you that over and over and over again, the same feelings will crop up for us if we can identify them. And that process of acknowledging, identifying, naming a feeling that's going on in our body will not only free us then from the feeling, but it will soothe the feeling so that after a number of times of doing this, the feeling doesn't happen as often.
Yeah. Right.
So it's a process of self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most people who feel their bodies think to themselves, I hate that. I just got to get it to go away. There's other people get it to go away. Why can't I get it to go away?
Yeah.
Which is the absolute opposite of what the feeling in our bodies need. Our bodies need us to say, wow, okay, that's a big feeling. All right, I got it. I guess something's scaring me or something's making me sad and if we do that, it will soothe it And over time, it will dramatically reduce it.
Yeah. It's great. That's
But
beautifully said.
stuff lives in our bodies forever.
Yeah.
My 93-year-old father with dementia, who didn't know what was going on around him, would say, "Ellen," and my body would clench because it always clenched, even
Yeah.
though he's completely powerless now. He has no power over me,
Yeah.
but my body doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And it
You know,
was,
it's interesting. Something that my first memory of this happening is when, and I think I was 15 or 16 years old. My grandfather was living with us and he had his leg amputated. Maybe I was
mhm,
older. No, I think I was in my 20s when this happened, early 20s. And he had his leg amputated, but he always still had pain in the leg
oh,
that was amputated. I was like, Grandpa, I don't understand. He's like, well, they call it phantom pain. But I would be talking to him and he would be on his bed with just, one leg. And he would say, I think it was his right leg. He would say, my leg is in so much pain. My foot is in so much pain right now. And there was no foot. And I remember thinking, God, that is like, I didn't know what it meant, but I knew what it meant. You know what I mean?
yes, yes, sure.
But I never forgot it because it was like, so as you say, it always lives within us. It's,
Always.
there's always stuff there. Right. But I love how you talked about, just identifying the feeling and just kind of, I always think people really like systems and a process that they can then adopt and
Right.
make define it in a different way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I can tell you my one other really valuable trick. I'm sure mindfulness is not something new to you,
Yeah.
but I'm going to tell you a little bit about just a mindfulness trick that can be really helpful. So when my body clenches, I always talk about that somehow my body doesn't feel safe somewhere. And what I do at those times when I can access it is I blink my eyes, I kind of move my body a little bit, I take one breath in and out, I close my eyes for a second, I open my eyes back up, and I look around me and I say to myself, is there any real danger right now? And the answer is always no.
Mm-hmm.
And I have done that with terminal cancer patients. Right now, this minute, there isn't any real danger.
Yeah.
In 5 minutes, there might be, but what you're going to worry about and ruminate about in your head right now is not going to help you then
Yeah.
in 5 minutes when there is a real danger, because we use a very different part of our brain for that.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
telling ourselves over and over again, I'm like a huge Michigan football fan, and I sit at these games or watch them on TV, and literally my body is in knots because somehow it just really affects me. And I do this repeatedly over. Ellen, you are in this incredible stadium. Just take a breath. There is no danger here. There's no danger right now.
Yeah.
So if I were to tell anybody anything, it would be that you can access safety whenever you want to,
Yeah. Yeah.
whenever you want. And all of that soothing and self-compassion makes us more resilient and just generally able to handle life's
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I can see how your gifts, not only, I know you work with individuals and couples and families, but I can see how your gifts obviously work in all of those arenas, but also in the workplace.
Right.
I think right now it is, and I think once the pandemic hit and when COVID hit, it was interesting. I think companies finally woke up and realized that it's not just a ping pong table and a snow cone machine and popcorn at the office, which those are important for many companies, but it's teaching people how to take care of themselves and how to nurture themselves and how to put themselves first and how to recalibrate and how to, And I think a lot of companies we've seen and we continue to see them taking a responsibility in the well-being of their
Right.
people. And
Right.
so can you talk a little bit about, what you're seeing, what you're doing, and where you see the trend of that going?
Yes. The first thing that I would say about that is that I don't believe that there is anybody in the world right now that isn't emotionally affected by 3 years of survival mode.
Yeah.
And people may say, oh, the pandemic was nothing. It didn't, it's not true. It just isn't true. The atmosphere that we live in is so incredibly charged right now that people are just on the edge. I use this word angst. Angst is sort of dread. It's like something that we feel when we're not really scared, but we're like, sometimes angst is about like the
Yeah.
other shoe dropping or something like that. And I used to think we'd wake up in the morning and we'd be at 10% angst, and then it would build during our day. Now I believe that we wake up in the morning at 50%. And so we just build for that from there every day with life that comes at us.
Yeah.
I also think that people got really used to being out of touch with other human bodies.
Yeah.
And there's lots of good things about that, and there's also lots of bad things about it. So if you've been out of touch from other humans in a while and then you're back in the thick of it, you may need to develop just some internal resiliency to be able to tolerate people again, because they can be really annoying. Just because if you're used to sitting in your room or in your house with one or two other people for much of the last 2 years, it's going to be really hard, and your body's going to get really triggered over and over in the workplace. So what might have come easily before is going to take more effort, and what I call being intentional. It used to be before the pandemic that when I would go to work, I would be distracted from my negative thoughts in my head. Okay. And adjusting to the pandemic was about figuring out how to shut these thoughts up that used to be distracted all day. That now they're there because I'm not at work. But so then we got used to quieting the thoughts when we were more solitary. Now we have to get used to, again, allowing being with others to help us to quiet our own negative thoughts. And any manager really needs to understand this. This is new territory.
Right.
We don't understand how humans are functioning right now.
Yeah.
So whatever you knew before, this is really the time to wonder.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you're talking about, because I think people are starting to kind of, some people are starting to fall back into just doing it the way it was.
Right.
But I think we all have a responsibility to, commit to education and to commit to our own personal growth if we're leading people today, because the leaders have to be in front of a lot of this and bring in experts like you and read books and share and implement it into their world. And so how does somebody, from your perspective, Ellen, begin to take ownership of their own evolution, their own transformation? Because if you want to be a better person, if you want to, then you just got to do the work to be better.
You just got to do it, except for you have to really understand what it is that you want. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to think, I can tell you an example of, let's just say a husband and a wife, and the wife wants the husband to do something for her, and she doesn't really tell him that she wants him to do something for her. She just says, I'd like that. So in his mind, he doesn't know that he's supposed to do something for her, and he kind of goes about it in his own way. and so the wife then is unsatisfied. And the reason is because it isn't that she wanted that. She wanted him to do it. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
She wanted him to do it. So when we are intentional about what we need, we're able to separate our feelings from it and much more logically figure out what the steps might be to get it.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the biggest key.
Yeah.
Not all of us are able to think about, what would I want? What would I do? How would I do it? What would be incremental things I could do, or step by step? Not everybody is able to do that on their own. Somebody can help us to think in an intentional way. And then, there's a lot of people that just are really uncomfortable with success. And so if we can help get them into the ability to accept small successes, they could then, and me and my book is just the perfect example of that. I was just like, okay, it's out there. I'm not telling anyone about it. And now I actually promote it because I had to get used to that I could do this and that people would appreciate it.
Yeah. Good.
But I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you got there, Ellen.
Thank you. Me too.
Before we move into a quick speed round, I want to talk about responding versus reacting. Mm-hmm. Because in a lot of the things that you're talking about, whether you're managing, whether you're being managed, as you're leading, one of the things I always say is children react and adults respond. And so we need to kind of get into our adult. And as a leader, you really have to be careful on the jokes or, the snide remarks, or because a drop of blood can ruin a gallon of water and people can become very fearful around you. And so can you just talk about kind of, what that looks like and how people can kind of get into a space or back to center from your perspective where they can respond and not react?
Yes. So I believe the key to not being reactive is to know and own your stuff. I talk about people knowing and being proud of their buttons. Mm-hmm. This isn't something secret and terrible about us. All humans have buttons, okay? Yeah. And if you know your buttons, I know my button in a business meeting is that if I have something to say and someone doesn't ask me what that is, I'm going to sit back in my chair and pout, okay? Because I can't tolerate it when I feel like I don't matter, when I feel like I'm not important, that kind of thing. Yeah. That's my button. So when I'm in a situation where I'm needing to manage other people, I need to know their buttons. They need to know their buttons. And when I know my buttons, I can think and respond rather than just knee-jerk react from my emotions. Yeah. Because we all have our stuff.
Yeah. No, we all have our stuff, right? And right when you think you got it, some new stuff comes up, right?
Exactly.
Where'd that come from? I thought I was right. One of the ways I describe it is I tell people to kind of, and I'm not perfect at this by any means, but I tell people to visualize a line and then visualize yourself above the line. How does it feel? Feels great. How does it feel below the line? Not so good. All right. Don't do anything below the line.
I love that. I have a metaphor that I use with couples, and I talk about that anybody who is with somebody in the long term, that you both exist in a pool of water. Yeah. And the pool of water supports you both and nurtures you both, drink from it, and you both swim in it. Yeah. So don't pee in the pool. Yeah. Because if you pee in the pool to get back at the other person, you're going to have to drink it. There has to be some better way of Yes, making
Yeah,
things better for
that's
yourself.
good. That's good. You know,
Yes.
a quote I heard in like the last week or so, which I loved, and is, I'm don't make someone else's crisis your crisis.
Mm.
You know,
Well,
you're right. Wait, I want to find the quote because it's actually better than that, because it was such a great quote. My buddy Randy Denhoff sends out these quotes like every day. And so this was the quote. It said, "Losing your head in a crisis is a good way to become the crisis." So I thought that was great. So
I do
all right,
think that's great.
that's a good one. Sorry. So quick speed round for you, Ellen. You ready?
Okay, sure.
All right. Besides yours, of course, a book that's had the biggest impact.
1995 Trauma and Recovery, Judith Herman.
Okay. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
If you would have walked every step in someone's life with them, their behavior today would make perfect sense to you.
Okay. What drives you?
The need to be valued, the need to matter, the need to, yeah, I guess that's it. The need to matter.
The person who's listening to this, and you talked about your journey of how long it took you to write your book. The person who's listening to this who has a book inside of them should
Find somebody to help them write it.
Yeah.
Because if you're a perfectionist like me, or you have lots of feelings of not good enough,
Yeah.
I'd still be wordsmithing the first paragraph
Yeah.
if I didn't have somebody to help me.
Yeah. I wrote a book. I give it away for free on my website. And what I tell people is behind every good writer is a better editor. And so all you need, I mean, my grammar's horrible. I write a chapter. I think it looks like, award winning. And then there's, 700 red marks on it from the editor that has rewrote it still in my voice. So yeah, that's all you need is just a great editor.
And you need to be okay with exposing yourself to that great editor, because that's vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah. Ellen, I got to have you on again. This was great. Tell everybody.
I love it.
Tell everybody who your ideal clients are and how they can connect with you.
Okay. My ideal clients are adults, couples. That's what I would say. People who are trying to understand themselves better. Some of those people are depressed, and some of them are anxious, and some of them really have sort of a lot of trauma living in their body. They can reach me on my cell phone, my business phone, which is on my website at ellenYchute.com.
All right, good. And Chute is I'm going to spell it out, ELLEN and then YCHUTE.com.
Yes.
Ellen, this was great. I'm a business coach, and I work with successful people who are stuck. I get them unstuck. And what I love about the podcast is it's a vehicle for me, one, to learn because I love it, and two, get guests, have guests where they can help people get unstuck as well. And you said so many things. I don't even know where to begin. I always like to kind of extract one thing. But I think if I had to extract one thing from today, what I would say is ask for help. And
for sure.
Ask for help. And you didn't necessarily say that, but it kind of was a through line, I think, through a lot of the things that you talked about.
All of it.
And I think it's a very, very, I see it. It has not always been easy for me. It's been a journey for me. And I think it's a very difficult thing for people in general, in life and in business. And, I think just asking for help, earlier in the process, I think makes all of this, not seem so scary. And so I appreciate you coming on, and I'm glad I ran into your boy at the golf club. And,
Thank you.
And this is great. It's been too long, but we'll have you back on.
Great.
Again, you can reach Ellen at ellenYchute.com. You can reach me at JonDwoskin.com. Thanks, everybody. Ellen, thanks. That was great.
Thanks, John.